I'm very excited today. Welcome to Going the Distance, the Rocky Series podcast. I'm very excited today to have Derek the Wayne Johnson. Uh, this is your fourth appearance, Derek, on the show.
Fourth, but I think it's like only my third with video, right?
Yeah, no, maybe three
Well,
of
the
the.
first one was video, but it was like we had all these issues, and then I think we did audio and then video. Yeah. So
Yeah, no,
third.
good memory, boy. Look at you.
Well, we always have technical problems, you and I.
I don't know why that is. Maybe we'll do okay today. I'm just gonna actually make this full screen. There you go. Okay, so I'm really excited to have you on today because we're gonna kind of put a cap or a finality to your Stallone adventure because the whole reason why you and I met and have become, I would say, friends, is because of Mr. Sylvester Stallone and his Rocky franchise and him as a movie maker, you as a movie maker, how your world's connected. So if this is the first time you're listening to Derek and I talk, I'd recommend going back to all the other interviews and hearing all the stories of Derek's journey because we don't need to rehash out everything. Not that it's not important, but this is more of the final chapter on your journey with the Rocky series and Stallone. And we're going to start off by talking about the documentary that you edited for Stallone, the behind the scenes of his recut or his own editing of the Rocky 4 Rocky versus Drago recut. So how did he get a hold of you? Was it John that got a hold of you, or was it Sly that got a hold of you for the editing?
It was Sly. He FaceTimed me, and which was pretty cool. And
Oh yeah.
he
Sorry, can we just okay, I just want to say this. I know it's for you, like, and I'm not going to speak for you in a terrible way, but you're like, all right, fine, Sly, I'll do it for you. Like, it's crazy that he has you on FaceTime, and I can only imagine. I'd be like, oh, hey, honey, can you just give me a second? Sly's got me on FaceTime. Like, it's just the casual way. Oh, he FaceTimed me. Okay, sorry, yeah, go on. He FaceTimed you.
well, that was the first time he FaceTimed me, but anyway.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
Well, actually, no. It's true though. There's a two-part FaceTime story to this story. No, he FaceTimed me. I mean, we usually talk on the phone or text or email, whatever. I mean, I didn't expect him to FaceTime me, but he FaceTimed me, and he was, if I remember correctly, this time he was on the way to the airport to fly out to Atlanta to do Samaritan on this particular one. Now, I did an interview recently, and I have to correct myself. I got the two FaceTimes mixed up. So that was the first FaceTime, and he asked me, this is what I have, John Hertzfeld, iPhone. Would you edit it? Da, 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 da. And I knew John because John was in Stallone Frank, that is, and he's a friend. So it was like no brainer. So that was the first FaceTime. Then John called and we FaceTimed because he was so excited that I said yes. Because Sly called him, he called me. It's just like all three of us, we were the only three that knew about this. So it was like we were all excited. So then, like, I don't know, a week or two later, like Sly FaceTimed me again, this time from the set of Samaritan. I think he was in his dressing room or whatever, hanging out. And we talked about it again. So it was just funny because it was like, yeah, I'll do it. I did make a joke to him about, it's more Rocky stuff for me, huh? Because we've done, the three documentaries before that. This was the fourth. So it was just funny. It was like John was like a little kid. He was so excited. Sly was like a little kid. And I'm just sitting there with my mind exploding, going, not only is this, Sly FaceTiming me, but he's hiring me to do something that no one's going to know about for about a year.
And you tortured
And
me. You tortured me for a year. I want to make this clear to our listeners. So Derek and I have we've become friends, and Derek is was it sadomasochist? What is it? You like to inflict? I hate that word. You like to inflict pain on people. So Derek sent me a message. He goes, "Oh, you won't believe it. Sly just he just called me, and I got some exciting news." And I'm like, "Oh, that's great. What are you doing?" "Well, I can't tell you, but you're gonna love it." I'm like, what are you doing to me, man? And then he says, so I peppered you. So come on, is it the? And we knew at the time that he was working on a recut at the time. So I'm like, you're working on something with a recut? No, can't say. I'm like, you're working on something about behind the scenes or some sort of extras for the DVD? Nope, can't say. But you'll like it, you'll love it. Anyways, you tortured me. I don't know why you do that. Why do you do that to me?
I don't know. I guess isn't it sadist? Is that the
Sadist.
correct
Yeah,
word?
I think so.
No, I mean it was just I knew that you would get a kick out of being teased about it, but I didn't know it was going to take a year because I mean I worked on that for 5 months.
Right.
That it took 5 months to edit that between Sly and John and I going back and forth, and so it was kind of funny. But I also didn't know that Rocky vs. Drago would come out a year later either. So like I was teasing you just to tease you. I thought it would last a couple of months. It lasted a year. So sorry about that.
That's okay. I forgive you. I forgive you. So okay. So you, how much footage got cut from this? Like, how much footage did you have, hours wise?
Man, well, hats off to John Hertzfeld because he filmed so much. I mean, how much got cut? Well, it's a 93-minute documentary. I probably went through several hours. I really don't know. I'd have to check the hard drive, but several hours that John filmed.
What was
there was so much stuff that. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, what was the direction from Sly like? What was his direction on your editing? Because how much, for example, let's say he says something that he didn't want to reveal. So what was the direction on what you can and can't cut? I mean, did you leave things in that he wanted taken out? Was there anything revealing that I know you can't share, but was there something that's like, oh, I don't want that out? Like, give us the dirt on something.
Well, I like to protect Sly, right? We all do. I mean, I would protect any subject. Now, again, I'm just the editor on this. I'm not the director. So I'm executing John's vision. But because I've done this several times before, I really take care of my subjects. And with Sly, he was so raw and open. John and I really were like, hey, okay, I'll put it this way. I think I was a little too protective. And I think John was like, no. Like, let it go. And so Sly was cool with that. I mean, yeah, there's a few things that you like don't put in, but I got to give them credit that they're like, no, don't hold back unless instructed otherwise. So yeah, a few things, but like even for example, I mean, I can't say what those little things are. That would be, that wouldn't be cool. But it was just like I'd be like, okay, I'd do this cut, and it'd be like say 30 seconds. John would be like, no, let it breathe, make it a minute. And I thought that was very interesting because it wasn't my style. And if you look at this documentary, you can tell it's not my style. What you can tell, because again, I'm just the editor. What you can tell is you can see similarities from my other documentaries that I did editorially. But this was John's let it breathe style as opposed to my boom, 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 boom style.
Now, did you add the photos and the photos that were inserted? We got a lot of.
Yeah.
Was that your creative decision?
Yeah. All the photos, all of the film clips.
I thought so. See, look, I knew it. I was watching. I was like, I think that's Derek. I think that's Derek's touch. I think that's him adding that sentimental pictures and what have you.
Even the music. I mean, some of it John chose. Well, hold on. I should correct myself. What's on YouTube has no music.
Right.
But we did a cut with music. Okay. So they're working all that out. I don't know what's going to come of that, but so I should take that back. But yeah, the film clips, the photos, all that stuff, that was me. But some stuff, again, John's the director. He would send me something to add in, or Sly would, like, for example, I remember when it's talking about Sly going to the theater and seeing Hercules and whatnot. I Googled like photos of that theater and put them in, and Sly was really touched by that.
Oh, nice.
He was like, wow, because it's like he was in it again as a kid. He hadn't seen the inside of that theater in a while.
Well, it's really cool. That's awesome. I love that insight. We got a couple of listener questions. Well, actually, not listener questions. Craig from the Slycast podcast, we were doing a recording yesterday talking about the documentary, and he says, oh, can you ask Derek a couple questions for me? So you ready?
Sure.
He wants to know how long did Sly and John actually work in that studio? How was it? Days, months, weeks? Like, how long were they actually physically doing that stuff in that studio? It wasn't really indicated in the documentary.
Well, it sort of is. If you remember, it opens with, I think it says September 2020,
Right. Okay. Yeah,
and
you're right.
then January 2021. So they spent weeks. It was weeks, a couple months, and now he didn't go straight from September to January. It was like a chunk here, go shoot Samaritan, and then he came back and did some more. But it was weeks to months for sure.
Okay. All right. Good to know. What was the lollipop that Sly keeps sucking on? What is that? We were trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I can't remember. I mean, obviously, I have the raw footage somewhere, but yeah, I don't remember if they were provided or what, but it was cool to see him
Eating
and
sugar.
John.
Eating sugar,
Yeah,
Sly. Come on. I thought
or maybe sugar free. I
it
don't
could be
know.
sugar free. Yeah.
But yeah, John, to John's credit, he was like, yeah, make sure you got to put that in there. So he
Okay,
put
well,
that in
cool.
there.
Yeah, yeah. That's the first thing I was like, what is that lollipop? I was driving me crazy. Not that he was eating it, but I wanted to know what flavor or what the product was, and maybe give a shout out to that product. How was the movie delivered to the final product delivered to you and Sly? Like we noticed on the documentary setting of the property of MGM that has Sylvester Stallone's name on it to show this is his copy. I mean, who delivered that copy to Sly at the end for him to view in his home? We assume that is his home studio at the end of the film there.
Oh, of the actual movie. Sometimes I get the movie and the documentary mixed up.
No, he was
Uh,
watching. I believe I'm refer. He was. What was he watching at the end? Yeah, he was watching the movie at the end, right?
yeah, he was
Yeah.
watching the movie back in January,
So
so
who?
that's how long this was
Yeah.
existed.
So yeah,
Who
who?
delivered
Yeah,
that?
who?
Well, that's MGM.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So the studio delivered that to him, and that's the same screening room that I've watched, other stuff with him in.
But
That's pretty. We watched my first documentary in that screening room.
you watched Rocky, the first Rocky film, with Sly in that room, correct?
In that room, I have watched John G. Avildsen, King of the Underdogs, my first documentary. I've watched Rocky. I remember we caught the ending of First Blood on AMC, I think it was, and he gave me a bunch of. Now, when we watched Rocky, though, it was more of a skim through on Netflix, and he was just giving me stories. So yeah, I've watched First Blood, Rocky, King of the Underdogs there, and then his other screening room we watched Stallone Frank. That is. Oh, and that's the room where we recorded his narration for 40 Years of Rocky.
Oh
Okay, I'm
boy.
done.
Okay. Well, no. Well, actually, speaking of maybe being done, you have pretty much. This is it. This is it with the Rocky, at least Rocky and Sly. This has to be kind of the final chapter. What do you think? What, as far as you can tell?
I mean, maybe it's like Friday the 13th, the final chapter. Maybe there will be a new beginning. Uh, Rocky lives. I don't know. I mean, I did King of the Underdogs. I didn't know anything about 40 Years of Rocky. Sly offered me that. Then Stallone Frank, that is, happened. And then FaceTime, and it's like, will you edit this documentary? So I don't know. I mean, I personally don't have any other Rocky type documentaries in my head floating around that I'm going to do, but I certainly probably wouldn't say no. However, critics are kind of, Derek Johnson needs to get out of the Rocky vortex, but it's like, hey, man, you say, it's like, it's fun. It's awesome. I'm having a good time, but I don't have any aspirations.
Yeah.
Unless I do a feature, of
Yeah.
course. That'd be cool.
Yeah, yeah. So Sly, if you're listening, Derek's looking to direct Rocky 7. Give
There
it.
you go.
Man, that'd be amazing. So, well, there's nothing wrong with. I hate the term pigeonholed isn't the right word. I mean, look at Sly himself. I mean, you bring up Sylvester Stallone. What's the first film people think of or franchise? Rocky, and then maybe Rambo. It's okay to be known by something that started you or got you into the ethos. I mean, I'm kind of pigeonholed with my little stupid podcast, and but it's okay to be something that starts the journey, and your journey has been kickstarted, or at least you've have gained lessons learned, and you've grown and contacts, and now you are branching out. You are doing, which I know you've said you want to do. You want to be a feature filmmaker. You want to go beyond these documentaries. You don't want to be known as a documentary filmmaker. So you're working on something right now. Do you want to talk about your current projects you're working on and what's for the future for Derek?
Sure, and again, to that point, I'm clearly thankful and having a blast doing these documentaries.
Of course.
Sly asked me to do something again. Of course, I would say yes.
Of course.
I just don't have personal aspirations.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
The vision, your personal creativity for that part of of filming is it's done. But if Sly
Yeah,
comes,
I did my part. But if I got an offer, yeah, of course.
turn down
So
Sly.
same thing with-
Who turns down Sly? No, I'm good.
Right, right. Same thing with Karate Kid. Like, if of course, Cobra Kai. Like, of course. So, yeah. So I've done 4 feature films, and I just did my 5th. So, but I haven't done a feature film in like 10 years. So I started doing feature films, got into documentaries, and again, I didn't want to be pigeonholed, but I started to become pigeonholed. I've even had studio executives and big producers saying, "Well, how do I know that you can do feature films if I see you doing these documentaries that all kind of feel the same?" I'm like, "Well, here's my demo reel. I'm not going to show you the movies I did 10 years ago because I've come a long way." So, but they want to see something current, right? So with that, I was like, okay, after I edited the making of Rocky versus Drago, I said, it's time to do a feature. There's no better time right now during a pandemic, kidding, to do a feature. So we did a film called Bloodstreams, and it's a feature film. It's a drama, thriller, crime, and we shot it this past summer, and we're almost finished with post-production. So that was really, it was a palate cleanser, and it got me back into what I'm really passionate about. And then it also, at the same time, like, I miss documentaries as well. So I like the balance, and I think that's what I want to do with my career. Do a feature here, do a documentary there. But I'm back in the narrative feature game right now.
And Bloodstreams is a film that you wrote as well?
I co-wrote it with my writing partner, Frank Mangarelli. He's in Chicago, and we're just good buddies. We see eye to eye on cinema. So I came up with, the idea, let's shoot a movie. We wrote a script together, and then I directed it, produced it with my team. I'm editing it right now, and my longtime film composer, Greg Sims, who did the music for all of those documentaries, he's doing the music right now. So it's really cool. It's far different than the documentaries that I've been doing the past 10 years.
Can you give us a plot line? I know you don't like to reveal too much. I mean, is there...
It is too early to kind of promote Bloodstreams, but
Okay.
it's I will just say that it takes place in about 24 hours. It's a crime thriller, and it's just really cool. It's all set in my home state of Texas, not the Texas that you always see in movies where there's like a tumbleweed and like a cactus out in the West. No. East Texas, where it's just piney woods. It's just a forest of pine trees. And so it's really cool. It stars Han Soto. He did some Cobra Kai work. Yuji Okamoto, who from Karate Kid 2 and Cobra Kai. Brad Mall, who was a soap star for 20 years on General Hospital. And then Holland Haley, who you haven't heard of, but you will. She's fantastic. So it's a pretty cool East Texas crime thriller.
Oh man, well that's great. I mean, I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna buy it. So I've purchased everything you've done so far since we've met. I'm looking forward to it. What's next then for you after this work is done? I mean, do you have a project rolling around your head already? Are those creative juices flowing right now for you?
Well, yeah, I mean, they never stop. We actually want to turn Bloodstreams into a trilogy.
I should have asked. I was like, is this something that can have a... Okay.
Yeah, we definitely have aspirations for a trilogy. And then I have other features, other documentaries. I've just turned down a few. I turned down a feature and I turned down a documentary. So it's like, that's a good, issue to have. So
yeah, those are nice problems to have, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, totally, totally
Can you say
appreciative.
which not which company, but can you say the documentary topic that you turned down, or no?
No, I shouldn't because I
Okay,
just, I don't want it to.
all right.
It, yeah, might
That's
look bad on me later.
I'll ask you offline. I'm sorry. I
Right.
want to know, but if you can't say it, that's fine. No, I'm just kind of curious. What did Derek turn down? I don't know, canned tuna making in Central Europe or something. Who knows?
Hey, that's something I could get behind.
Yeah. Well, documentaries are very interesting because if a good documentary, a documentary is good, sorry, when it's a topic you don't even know anything about or I might have an interest in, but when you watch the documentary, you're like, oh, I enjoyed learning something from that documentary. So I think even people who don't know John G. Avildsen as a person, I think if they watch that King of the Underdogs, they're like, oh, he's a fascinating person. Even if they've maybe never seen a film that he's done before. That's a sign of a good documentary is, do I find the topic interesting or is it being presented in an interesting way?
Well, thank you. And that was
Yeah.
kind of the idea, for that one. And then of course Frank Stallone. It's like his brother, who's this guy, and then but it's interesting. I believe I haven't seen it yet, but the Robert Stigwood documentary just came out on HBO Max, and he produced Saturday Night Fever and fired John Avildsen. So I heard that we hear their side of the story. Of
Oh,
course, my documentary has hit John's side of the story,
sure.
but the truth is in the middle, I'm sure.
It always
But
is.
I'm
Yeah.
yeah. So it's like it's cool. It's like like you said, taking a subject that you don't know a whole lot about, learning about it. That's what's fun. But even with feature films, I try to think of like, okay, so crime, drama, thrillers, they've been done to death. How can we do it differently? And I think with Bloodstreams, you'll see how we did it differently. I hope. I
Yeah,
mean, I try
I
to
hope
put
so.
my
I hope so
stamp on
too.
it.
I hope so too.
Yeah.
Don't waste my time, Derek. You got to give me something.
Right. Right.
What are things from the documentary to feature film that you learned from doing documentary? Because you just said you did the feature films, then you did documentaries, and now you're back to feature. Was there something from the documentary filmmaking that you've now implemented into your feature filmmaking?
Yeah, I think it's both because everyone would always say, "Oh, with your documentaries, they feel like movies." Okay, that's intentional. I don't know if I truly was successful at that, but I get a lot of that feedback, so must have been successful in making them feel cinematic and feel like a movie. Okay, so would did you do you take a documentary feeling and put it into a feature? William Friedkin did in The French Connection, and look how that turned out.
Hmm.
So I do learn. I would say probably editorially speaking, I love how documentaries are edited. You cram a lot of information and a lot of visuals into a short amount of time. So I like taking that aspect of it and putting it into a feature film. So yes, I think it's a balance of both. Take the movie JFK, for example. They won an Oscar for the editing. It has that documentary feel because they cram it all in and it's effective. So yeah, you can I've learned both sides and I think it makes you a better storyteller, a better filmmaker.
Why don't directors in general edit their own films? Is it just a time thing? Because like, how much power does the editor have over the director?
Well, it's a time thing, it could be a union thing, it could be a studio thing. So there's a lot of red tape.
But
Or maybe a
why would the
director
director have more power than the editor? Or like, I don't understand how, or do they work hand in hand? They just don't talk about it.
the director has, if it's in their contract, hopefully they have creative control and final cut. At least I do. So, or I try to on every project. So basically, if it's a union thing, then the director doesn't necessarily, the editor doesn't, or the person that's hired to push those buttons. And the director is there eating Cheetos on the couch, going, do this, do that, do that, do this. So the director does have the power.
Okay.
You see in the documentary with Sly, he's in the editing room and he's dictating to his editor. The editor's name was Dove, I believe. Yes, Dove. Do this, 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 and this. So the director does have the power. So it just sometimes it comes down to a union thing, money, time. Maybe a director just needs to go shoot another movie or prep for another movie, and he has an editor he trusts. Then he can come in and kind of oversee it. I personally love editing my own stuff, and so did John Avildsen, by the way. He didn't always do it, but he loved it because I feel like until they tell me I can't, I'm going to, because I like having the control and I know what I want. So why would I have someone else do it when I'm just going to tell them how to do it anyway?
Because
So
yeah, some
that's,
of the great directors like Quentin Tarantino, I know he likes to edit his own. Like he has complete, like he writes, edits, and directs. So that's kind of your style. It looks like that you like to.
yeah.
If I was a director, which I'm not, or if I was a screenwriter, if I was filming my own screenplay, essentially, I know the way I am. I'd be a, let's say, control freak, but pass or fail, this is my project.
Yeah, I mean, it again. There's a lot of red tape, so it just depends what's in your contract. So, for example, I was offered a script recently that I didn't like at all, and but they wanted me to direct it, and I was like, okay, well, I have to give my notes and my opinions, and I would like to edit it. They weren't against me editing it; they just didn't like my notes. Well, it's like, well, why? What if you okay? So you wrote it and you don't want to listen to me? Why are you hiring me? You go direct it.
There you go.
Well,
Yeah. Well.
so it's like it's weird. You have to, as a writer, you have to let go. Your job is done once that director signs on. But with an editor, it's different. That's not necessarily the case. An editor doesn't go, oh, okay, this is me. No, the director's going to have say over what you edit.
When you who reaches out to the actors? Is that something you do, or do you have someone that does that for? Like, who's your casting?
Well, usually it's me. Usually in my films, I already know the people, so I usually write for or just know who I want ahead of time. I've really never used a casting director. Obviously, as my career grows, the budgets grow, etc., I will use a casting director one day. But I've actually never had to. I mean, I love casting directors, and I know some of them personally, but I've never had to use them. So coming into Bloodstreams, it was like I knew exactly who I wanted. There was only one audition in Bloodstreams, and that was simply because we wrote a character that we truly didn't have anyone in mind for. And I saw an audition for this actor. He was the only person I saw, and I knew immediately he was right for the role. Now, I told this actor that, and I said, at the risk, actors want to hear this. This is what actors want to hear. They want to hear, yeah, I went through 400 people and you're the one, right? Because then they're like, out of 400 people, I was chosen. That's actually not the case. I was so blown away by this guy that he was the first person I saw, and I go, him, I don't need to see anyone else. So sometimes that happens too. And that happened in Bloodstream.
Oh, cool! Very cool story. I love it. Well, before we close this interview, I want to do a semi cap off on the Rocky franchise myself. If you were asked by Sly, well, actually, before I get to that's the final question regarding the restoration, because you watched the Rocky versus Drago just recently, and I did too just recently, and would you be willing to share your thoughts on that film? I know our listeners, because my listeners of my podcast really love you, Derek. They love your insight, they love your stories. They know that we have a an off screen friendship, so they want to know.
I love them too.
Yeah, thank you. Well, they thank you. Yeah, you're one of the favorite guests for sure. They want to know what your thoughts are overall on the director's cut. Do you like the changes?
Yeah. Yeah, oh, I'd love to talk about it, and we could talk more about the making of Rocky versus Drago if you want. So it's up to you, but because I have even more tidbits there.
Oh, please, yes.
Um, in other words, I didn't mean to. I know it's a Rocky show, and I didn't mean to go off on Bloodstreams and stuff.
No,
but,
I wanted to talk about Bloodstreams. That was me. But,
well, thank you,
yes.
thank you. So what are my thoughts on Rocky versus Drago? I loved it, and here's why I loved it. I love that. And normally, I don't care for when films get tainted with, like classic films, like they mess with them. But again, going back to Lethal Weapon, I love the Lethal Weapon director's cut. And that kind of showed me as a kid, like, because the director's cut came out when I was about 16 in 1999. And that's the one I really watched the most. So it's hard for me to go back and watch the theatrical cut. However, you take something like Star Wars. Of course, I prefer the original and not the special edition, right? Okay. So I watched Rocky versus Drago, and I'm like, I'm glad this exists. It's such a great companion to the original. I truly feel like I like both of them equally because I laughed in the new one. There were lines in there that I literally went like how I don't want to spoil anything for the audience, but some of Polly's lines were changed when they get to Russia. And I'm like, what? And it kind of was like it was neat. And I love how it was flushed out a little bit better. It breathed and more Adrian. I was like, yes, give me more Talia any day of the week. So I really liked it. There were some spots in it where the pacing was a little off, but you're going back 35 years, that's going to happen. So I really enjoyed it. I love that they both exist, and I feel like once a year I could watch each one and be totally satisfied. So there's my spiel.
Okay, gun to your head. You have
All
to
right.
you have to watch the franchise as a franchise for the rest of your life with one of the two inserted for 4. Which one do you pick?
Well, I would go with the original,
Okay.
and the reason is it's in my bloodstreams.
Yeah. Hey, bloodstreams. Look at that. Look at
Yeah.
that.
So I mean, that's the one that we all grew up on. But I love that I got to
Yeah.
experience the new one for
No,
sure.
I,
It was really good.
I totally agree. Now, we talked about this on our recording last night with Craig, and he wanted to know. Well, he asked me. He says, "Did you could tell?" And this isn't a criticism on the film, but maybe this is a technical thing that you can speak to. Is you could kind of tell in the film because I was watching 4K high def on my TV, and there's times I could tell, oh, this is the inserted footage due to the resolution issues. Is that a what's the technical reasoning for that? Are they not able to make it a seamless? Is it a money thing, or is it just a film transfer thing? Is it just we can't restore that footage to make it look like today's footage?
Uh, it's all about the master. So they MGM definitely went into the master, which is 35-year-old physical film print. It's never going to be the same. You can't now. Some of it you also have to think about this. So if they go in and they go into the master, they can make it as pristine as possible, right? This piece of 35-year-old film, but sometimes they don't have the master. Sometimes they have a duplicate. Okay, so you have to think in your mind of VHS tape because we grew up with VHS. We're watching movies now that look like they're brand new, but we saw them snowy with tracking issues and kind of hard to see. That's because that was a duplicate of a duplicate of a duplicate of et cetera, et cetera. And that fades over time. So take that to film. Sometimes they can't get into the master or they only have a duplicate. Well, once you have just that, it's hard to match it. So it comes down to it's not sloppy editing or anything on MGM's behalf. It's just this is a physical thing that's old and we're trying our best, or we don't have the actual clean version of it. Even with some of the audio, clearly you heard Sly do some ADR, some voiceover. He put his new voice into some stuff.
Yeah.
Hey, that's cool. I mean, I know I have the ear for it.
Yeah, I could tell. I know which scene you're talking about. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and that's cool. It didn't bother me. So, and then some, they with the sound. Now you also have to remember, for 5 months, I was watching all of this happen, editing the documentary. So I also have seen stuff that isn't even in the documentary. So, they had to go in with the sound and redo sound. And how do you match sound? Notice that the punches, the sounds are different things. It's just different technology.
Okay, that's fair. Okay. And regarding the documentary, back to the documentary, there's one thing that I saw in the documentary that I thought Sly was going to put in the final film. So it's kind of funny. I watched the documentary first, and I was like, Sly, why did you put... Because then when I watched the Rocky versus Drago, that part wasn't in the film. Like, or if it was, I missed it. There was a scene that he was showing in the documentary when Rocky did like a warrior yell at Drago. Rah! You remember that part?
Okay, I need to clarify. And when you go back in, watch it again, and you'll see it's not part of the movie. That's his warm up. So that's not. Yes, they were recording because you start the camera, and then that's the leader that gets cut out of the movie. That's Sly warming up. That's not Rocky. That's Sylvester.
Oh, I just loved it. I loved it when I saw it. So that was just Sly being Sly.
That's Sly being Sly.
Oh,
He's bulking up. He's raging out. The wolf is coming out in him, and that was his way of. Because you have to understand, like, okay, he's directing, he's acting, he's got to play Rocky. He's got to know exactly what moment he's in. So he's psyching himself up. So when he says action, he's in the moment because he's an athlete. He's a physical guy. So that's literally Sylvester. That is not Rocky.
that is so cool. I don't know why. Was that explained? Did I just miss that? Am I just a? I don't know why I would miss that.
I'll have to go back in and see. I haven't seen the doc in a few months, but
Right.
I'm pretty sure it may not be explained. I
Well,
don't know.
yeah, no, I mean it's okay. I mean it's like anything. Like when you watch something for the first time, you're just gonna miss things. That's why you can watch like a movie for the 10th, 13th, 100th time, and you catch things that you just didn't. Your brain just catches what it catches. But I saw him doing. I guess I was attacking or approaching the documentary as everything I'm seeing on screen. He's trying to put into the film type thing. So there's part of my brain like, oh, he's gonna do this like warrior yell before he starts fighting Drago. And so that's still very cool. That was like Sly. That wasn't acting. That was just Sly being real. So that's actually kind of more cool. I thought it was Rocky doing it, but it was Sly getting ready to be Rocky. So that's really, really. So again, if you haven't watched this documentary, people, you gotta watch this documentary.
And remember, he talks about the arm wrestling thing.
Yeah.
That's what he would do. He would psych himself out, and that's how he beat that bodybuilder back in college. What you see in the documentary, or you hear about it, is he's psyching himself out. That's his way of doing it.
That's awesome. The other thing I really liked about the documentary is they showed bloopers, essentially bloopers that we've never seen. Have we ever seen a Rocky blooper before this documentary?
We've never seen any of this stuff. And now, imagine you're me. And imagine it's a year ago. I mean, think about this. I'm going to set this up for you. No one knows about this. Millions of people are going to see this, but only you know about it. You, John Hertzfeld, Sylvester Stallone, Dove, the editor, of course, more people at MGM. I'm sitting there going like, whoa, this is cool. And I can't talk about it. So the bloopers and like, again, things that behind the scenes stuff, things that didn't go in the movie, it blew my mind. So no, we never saw any of that stuff. He literally, that stuff sat in the vault for 35 years. No one saw it. And he goes back in and he pulls it out. And it was just, even the way he's messing with Dolph, and he's like off camera, he's directing Dolph, feeding him some lines like, here, say this, say that, say that. And then he says the whole bit about, and I'd like to thank my manager, da-da-da-da. I mean, that's classic stuff.
Yeah,
That we just
I love
didn't know
it.
existed.
When are we gonna get a blooper reel? Is there a blooper reel?
I mean, I personally didn't cut one, so I don't know, but it's just cool that that stuff exists. It's cool that, the whole finally correcting that, that Apollo doesn't have his gloves on. Stuff like that. I mean, it's just great stuff. But that's filmmaking. There's mistakes, there's bloopers all the time.
Yeah, I love bloopers. And when I was watching it, we see Dolph playing Drago, of course, laughing at Sly. He laughed. He broke character and laughed. To see Drago smile, it blew me away because I'm watching the Drago footage, but the Drago starts smiling. Like, oh yeah, it's just Dolph smiling. So it was just a really cool little moment. So again, watch this documentary, folks. Are we going to get a physical copy? I know everyone keeps asking this question. Where is the physical? There are a lot of people who are not streamers. They want physical copies of the Rocky versus Drago and of the documentary.
I don't know either. I still talk to Hertzfeld, John Hertzfeld some, and he'll keep me updated on stuff. But And then I don't know about the film either, so I really just don't know. I know that that would be great and it should happen, and I'm sure it will. Why wouldn't they? I mean, they would make a lot of money on both. So I don't know personally though.
And
Seems like they would.
I think it was said by Sly in an interview that he's not opposed, or maybe even will, maybe tinker with some of the Rocky films. Do you think he will?
Um, I mean, I don't know. He hasn't said anything to me, but I'll be glad to edit another documentary for him if he does do one. But no, I don't know, because you have to also think about, say, everyone's like Rocky Five should be
Yeah,
next. Rocky
yeah.
Five, you got to fix Rocky Five. Well, that was John Avildsen's film.
Well, that's the
You know,
question. That yeah, people rightfully so. I mean, it tells you something about Rocky Five, doesn't it? That people are so desperate, not in a mean way, but they're so desperate for that film to be Sly's vision. But is that because I know you're a big John Avildsen fan, and we know the problems with that production. Do you? Whose vision was that finally on that film? Was it a mishmash? Was it just two different? Was it two different directors? Was it? Is there a vision that you think exists on film that can be fixed? I know there's a lot of different
well, yeah. I
rushes.
mean, we've talked about the director's cut before, or the work print
Yeah.
that was on its way to YouTube years ago. It was so much better than the theatrical version. No, look, John was the director. That was John's film. It Sly brought him back. They try to recapture the earlier essence to no avail. I mean, you have studio interruptions, you have worn out material, you have Sly's version, John's version of each story, and it all comes down to the script and just the production itself. Sometimes just don't hit. I really enjoyed that director's cut slash work print. I only saw it once, but it was like there was a lot of really cool stuff in there that didn't make the final cut. I do know that, and I think I've told you this before, at the end of Rocky Five, when he's fighting Tommy and there's like all this crazy, insane editing and like montage and stuff, that was not John. That was, from what John told me, that was maybe the studio or the editor did that. And I don't think John was going to put Drago in it. Again, MGM, no, please don't be mad at me for saying all this stuff, but that's just what John told me. So now you might go, wait a second. You just said earlier that the director calls the shots. But again, sometimes I don't know what was in John's contract. There's studio involvement. There's union stuff. I don't know. All I know is he told me that wasn't his editing, and he wouldn't have done that.
Well, that's fair.
So I don't know.
Yeah, I know it's kind of a messy business because even Sly says in the documentary that he felt some pressure from the studio with Rocky Four. That even himself at that stage in his career, I mean, he was only about 40 years old, but he was like feeling the pressure from the studio, and he kind of felt rushed too, and he felt like he kind of knew he was given that 80s product even back then, that it wasn't quite the drama that he had in mind either. That's kind of what I got from the documentary. I mean, sometimes we speak of re-editing, and sometimes we re-edit our own memories, right? Like, I don't know if like our memories can be kind of false, but he said that was what he felt at the time, that this was a way of making up for what he wanted at that time. So probably with John, I would assume. I think a lot of the studio did meddle because I think Sly said he wanted Rocky to die at the end of Part Five. That was his first vision, but because
Well, that's why John signed on. John signed on to that project because he read the script, and Rocky dies, and Adrian's holding him in her arms, and it was this beautiful ending. And then, as you find out in my documentary about John, the studio calls and is like, Rocky doesn't die.
Yeah, exactly.
So to Sly's credit, I mean, he wrote that beautiful ending, and the studio did meddle and change that. So so there's that. But also on the Rocky Four thing, Sly does talk about the folly of youth and how he wished he would have thought differently back then. So as much as like he may have originally wanted Rocky Four to be more of a drama, and he had studio pressure, he also was young, full of adrenaline, and like, let's go, 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 go. And as he's mellowed out over the years, he's like, could have let this breathe, could have let this breathe. And he finally got to do that. So I think when you're younger, it's all about go, 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 go. I mean, how many times have you heard from people that aren't true fans like, oh, Rocky 1's boring. It's so
Yeah.
slow. I really love Rocky 4.
Yeah.
That says so much about a person, to be honest with you. Let's
Yes.
be real.
I know. Like, I'm
So
sorry,
much
people.
about it.
Me and Derek are on the same page. If you're a Rocky fan and you're legit a Rocky fan of the franchise, and you say Rocky 4 is your favorite film of the franchise, is it fun to watch? Absolutely. Is it a blast? Does it go down easy? Absolutely. But you can't say you're right. Yeah, the only two that I give you arguments for is Rocky 1 and Rocky 2. A lot of people
Well,
really
now
love.
they can say it's their favorite, but if you say it's the best,
Okay, fine. That's fair. That's fair. Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
If you
Yeah.
and if you say Rocky 1 isn't good and it's slow and boring,
Yeah.
let you have issues, kid.
Yeah.
But no, it could be your favorite.
Okay, that's fair. Derek being the diplomat. I don't mean to. No, but what I'm saying is, yeah, you're right. That's a filmmaker way of saying it. That's right. It could be your favorite, but it's not the best one. Perfectly said. Before we close, one last question: if Sly asked you to direct Rocky 7, what is a plot point that you would like to see happen?
I have no idea, and I'll tell you why. I'm just being honest
Sure.
because I have no idea because if I think about that stuff, it'll drive me insane because I know I won't be directing it. You see what I'm saying? If it were to
Right.
happen.
Right.
So I try not to because like if I really just start thinking about it, I'll get excited and I know it's not going to happen. So I just don't think about it. But I will say something on Rambo.
Sure, before you do, that's how I feel about when people say, "Oh, Ryan, you're going to interview Sly one day." I don't think about it because it would just drive me. It'd make me depressed. You know what I mean? And so, like, I'm the same way. So I now you know how I feel, and I appreciate it when people say that to me. Oh, Ryan, one day. Like, I know what you're saying, but if I literally thought that's why I'm doing this, then that's not why I'm doing this podcast. You know what I mean? But at the same time, just like you said, if Sly comes calling, of course I'm going to answer. But it's not something you drive. It's not something you do because it would make me feel too depressed and anxious to think of like that. So fair answer. But yes, tell me some Rambo because when I'm done the Rocky franchise, which is soon, by the way, we're going to move on to the Rambo franchise as a podcast. So
Oh,
yeah,
excellent.
yeah,
That's pretty cool, man. Wow. Well, I was just gonna say, when I saw Last Blood, you know my thoughts on it. I think we talked about it or messaged about it maybe. But what I would have done is at the time Brian Dennehy was still alive. I don't know how his health was. Obviously, I would have brought Dennehy back, and I would have made him the Troutman type character, meaning he's coming back to help whoever be like, I've been there, I've fought this guy. And either he's more like helping in the Troutman sense that Troutman did in part one, or he's kind of, he and Rambo kind of come together in a way. I mean, that's what I would have done.
I agree.
Is
I
come
agree.
full circle with oh man, his name escapes me. His character name.
Sheriff Teasdale.
Teasel, I think. Yeah, that's what I would have done, but whatever. But when it comes to Rocky 7, I try not to think about it.
Okay, my closer on Last Blood is very similar because Brian Dennehy was alive at the time. I think his health was a little bit, he was, let's say rough, but he was, older, and I think he lost a lot of weight. I would have had Rambo caught by the authorities, like he was caught, just like he was caught in First Blood, and Sheriff Teasel visits him in jail, and says,
Yeah.
Here we are. That's the full circle. Whatever the dialogue would have been, I can't write dialogue, but some sort of like closure. Not an angry visit, but kind of like both broken older men of like the journey's over. They can, it's kind of where it's supposed to be. Like John Rambo, is kind of a criminal. He's not really supposed to be doing what he's doing on on Arizona soil, and so he does go to jail for the safety of the public. And Sheriff Teasel kind of sees him there and says, "Well, here we are, back to square one." So it would have been that kind of would have been an interesting ending, and then it just fades to black with them sitting in across the bars from each other. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah. See, again, you and I just think eye to eye. Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome. Well, you and I can keep talking. People are like, "Oh my gosh, guys, hang this up already." These two friends are just yapping about stuff. So, like, you and I talk forever about this sort of thing, and I love it. And I hope our listeners enjoyed it. Derek is a good friend of the show, a good friend to me, and he's been nothing but gracious with his time, his stories, his insights. For the record, Derek never reveals anything to me that he's not supposed to, for the record. So I just want to make that clear. And I did talk about that in my last podcast, that you teased me with this, and you never broke code. You never broke code, even though you drove me crazy, and but I can see why. So I appreciate that. And I'm sure the studio appreciates that too. So Derek, thank you so much for coming on the show, and I wonder what our 5th interview will be about.
Well, I don't know, but I appreciate you always having me on, and you're doing good work here. I really look forward to the Rambo series that you're going to do. And I just want to send a special thanks to John Hertzfeld and Sylvester Stallone for bringing me onto the documentary, and to you, Ryan. Like, you're a good buddy. Thanks for having me on. Your listeners are awesome, and I really appreciate it. And it's a good format to talk, and I just wish everyone well, and I'll be back, I hope.
You will be. All right. Thank you so much. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. All right, buddy.